Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever had a crush that felt, well, like it completely took over your life? We're talking about an all-consuming emotional state that goes way beyond a simple crush. It's called limerence. And if you've ever felt totally lost in thoughts of another person, you are definitely in the right place. So let's dig in and figure this out together. This quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that painful magnetic pull. It's not just about liking someone. It's this deep, consuming ache for a person who always seems just out of reach. And the crazy part? That distance, that unavailability, that's exactly what makes it so incredibly powerful. All right, to really get a handle on this, we first need to define what we're actually talking about. We've got to get clear on what makes limerence so different from your everyday crush or even from being in love. Okay, the key word here is involuntary. This is not a feeling you choose. It just happens to you. It's overwhelming because it truly does take over, creating this desperate need for the other person to feel the same way. And it's all fueled by this elaborate fantasy world that can start to feel way more real and compelling than actual reality. And if you're in the middle of it, these are the questions just running on a loop in your head, right? It can feel so isolating, so confusing. But here's the thing, it doesn't come from nowhere. There are reasons. So let's follow the clues and find some answers. So our first clue actually takes us way back. See, to understand why this feeling can take root so deeply, we have to look at the soil it grows in. And that soil, it's often prepared a long, long time ago, back in our childhood. It turns out limerence isn't just random. It tends to find a home in people with a pretty specific mix of traits. We're talking about people with high sensitivity and a really vivid creative imagination. But also, and this is crucial, those who grew up feeling an emotional scarcity, people who learned a core belief, deep down, that love isn't just given freely, it's something you have to work for, something you have to earn. This quote from our source material is just, wow. It's so poignant. It perfectly captures that feeling of invisibility. When you grow up feeling like you're just in the background of your own life, it creates this deep-seated hunger to finally be seen, to be the one who gets picked. And this just builds on that idea, right? This feeling of being never quite enough creates a kind of wound. And limerence comes rushing in with this incredible fantasy that promises to heal that wound. A fantasy of finally being the one, of being so special that someone would choose you above everyone else. Okay, let's move on to our next clue. This one gives us a psychological framework for this deep longing. We're going to look at our internal blueprint for relationships, something psychologists call attachment theory. So, what is attachment theory? To put it simply, the way we bonded with our parents or caregivers when we were very young sets the stage for how we connect with everyone else as adults. It literally creates a template or a blueprint in our minds for what love and connection are supposed to look and feel like. And this really breaks it down into two main paths. If you had a secure attachment, you grew up feeling safe, seen, and accepted. But if your needs weren't met consistently, or maybe not at all, you can develop an insecure attachment. And that can leave you with a kind of inner emptiness and this powerful, deep longing for the closeness you never really got. And here's where it all clicks. For someone with that insecure attachment blueprint, limerence becomes this perfect fantasy solution. You end up projecting all of those unmet childhood needs onto this one person, who, in your mind, promises to finally give you the security and validation you've always been craving. It's like an attempt to go back and fix the past. And this brings us right to the heart of the whole thing, self-worth. Because the fantasy that limerence creates, it's not really just about the other person. At its core, it's about how we feel about ourselves. I mean, just look at this slide. It lays it all out so clearly. On one side, you have this painful reality, the feeling of being invisible, that quiet, nagging voice that whispers, "I'm not enough." And on the other side, the limerent fantasy screams back, "No, you are their everything." It's an incredibly powerful and seductive escape. And, we're not always equally susceptible to this. Limerence often strikes when we're at a low point. Maybe we're going through a tough breakup, feeling really lonely, or just stuck in a rut. When our self-image is already shaky, the idea of a perfect person swooping in to save us feels like a lifeline in a storm. Okay, so we followed the clues, we've looked at childhood echoes, attachment styles, and self-worth. So, now what? Let's start putting all these pieces together and see how this understanding can actually point us toward healing. How do we move forward from here? So let's just do a quick recap of the key ingredients we found.
Limerence really thrives on a combination of feeling invisible as a kid, having an insecure attachment blueprint, a fragile sense of self-worth, and a powerful imagination that can make a fantasy world feel incredibly real.
But here is the most important part. This is the big shift in perspective. These things, your sensitivity, your imagination, your deep desire for connection, these are not flaws. They are not weaknesses. In fact, they are strengths. They are signs that you have a big heart and a profound capacity to connect with others. And that's why you can't just reason your way out of limerence. The antidote isn't logic, it's self-compassion. The healing really begins when you can start to turn all that intense longing you feel for someone else back towards yourself. And this really is the ultimate takeaway. The goal completely shifts. It's no longer about winning that person's affection to prove you're worthy. The real journey, the real work, is about learning to give yourself the compassion and the validation you've been so desperately seeking from the outside. Now, if this really resonated with you and you want to dive a little deeper, the source for this explainer is the book Loving an Illusion by Anne Skye. There's also a really supportive community called Limerence Pathfinders on the Skool platform. And that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining me.